Good day, everyone. Eric from Helps here on Helps Law Firm YouTube channel. Glad to have you here. My name's Eric Olsen, 74, attorney now for 46 years, founder of Helps. Helps is a national law firm that represents seniors and disabled persons who owe debt they can't afford to pay. We do that under the provisions of the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, which provides if you're represented by an attorney, debt collectors have to leave you alone. And our main purpose is to protect seniors from collector harassment. We also want to educate seniors and disabled persons who receive protected income how they can maintain their financial independence. So I want to welcome you to our YouTube channel. If you have any questions, please answer them. Let me know that you can hear me. I'm glad to have you here. Okay. The topic is, well, to lead into the topic, I'll just read you something that some person contacted us, and this is what they wrote. I signed up with a company by the name of Freedom Debt Relief around 2.5 years ago. I was on their program paying them $500 per month. After paying them, they transferred me to their sister company named Achieve Personal Loans. What they neglected to tell me was that they were going to charge me more than 22% interest on this loan. Point blank is that I paid them $12,000 between both companies combined. My original debt when I signed up was $23,000. They settled with the creditors for around $17,000 or so. I'm not sure. Anyway, with the interest rate I was being charged, I still owe them about $17,000. Therefore, with all this and what it means is that they brought up my debt to $29,000, so they put me more in debt, and the $12,000 which I have paid them seems to have vanished or not taken into account. I stopped paying them 2 months ago. I'm 71 years old with disabilities and living on my Social Security pension only. Yes, I am married, but my wife is also retired and we can only make ends meet. I would be very happy if you can help me, and I can, and he goes on. Okay, so the topic is how debt management companies defraud seniors. Okay, not all of them, but the vast majority. Okay, that's a pretty serious word, fraud. You know, fraud can have a whole lot of range of meanings. There's criminal fraud and there's civil fraud. Okay, so if you commit fraud, you're not going to necessarily go to jail. Okay, there's civil fraud is one of the definitions is if you have a responsibility, a relationship with someone, and to give them advice or tell them something, if you withhold something from them that's to their financial detriment because you benefit financially, that's a form of fraud. If you don't tell someone something that you should tell them because it will benefit you economically, but it will harm them, that's fraud. And so what debt management companies don't do, and I know this because I talk to seniors all day long that have enrolled with a debt management company or a debt settlement company, and I ask them, when you enrolled with this company, did they tell you, by the way, you really don't need our help. Your income is protected. Your Social Security, your pension is protected. No one can take it. And there's other ways you can prevent a debt collector from calling you. And they'll always say, no, Mr. Olsen, they didn't tell me that. Well, why didn't they tell you that? The reason they didn't tell you that is because if they would have told you that, you would have known you don't need their help. And you wouldn't have enrolled with them. And you wouldn't be paying them $500 a month like this guy did, who found out now 2.5 years later the debt he originally had with them was what was it? $23,000. Now it's up to nearly $30,000. Okay, and the only one that's made money is this debt management company and their sister company. I hear these stories all day long. Okay, now how do they get away with this? Well, they have different ways of getting away with it. You know. One reason is I don't think they ask someone how they get their income. They even could talk to someone and they could tell it's an older person. They don't ask them if they're on Social Security. The other reason is I think the people that enroll people, they never train the enrollees, the enrollers for these programs, that if they talk to a senior that they should let a senior know that their income is protected and that no one can take their money. Instead, they just want to enroll seniors. You know, I read a financial report for one of these companies several years ago, and more than a third of their clients were seniors. So I know for a fact that a large percentage of people these debt management help, the people they help are seniors who have limited income, that are poor. Okay, and once again, they don't tell them that their income is protected. Instead, they sign them up, putting some of them into utter poverty. Okay, so um, I talk about that a lot and regularly because it's important, because it happens all the time. These companies advertise heavily. Why do they advertise heavily? Is because they make so much money. Like this person paid all this money. He paid them I don't know, $12,000. Okay, that went towards their fees, and they make a lot of money. And then when someone finally figures out they're not helping them, oh, they don't care. They've already been paid. Okay, so put your questions in the chat feature, and I'll attempt to answer them. But I want to thank you for all your support. If you like us, give us an approval, enroll in our YouTube channel, subscribe to it. Okay, good to have you here. Okay, this person contacts us from Tennessee. The husband is 81 and the wife is 79. Now, I talk about a lot of things on this channel. Don't think that I'm talking about you, because, like I've said before, a lot of seniors have the same problems. Okay, and they sound like, oh, this is me he's talking about. No, it possibly could be, but there's so many people have the same problems. So I'm not picking on anyone here. Okay, so this person, they co-signed on a loan for a daughter's car. A lot of seniors do that. And she totaled it. But apparently the insurance was canceled. And now, since he co-signed on the car and it wasn't paid for by insurance, he's being pursued for the debt. Him and his wife, it says they're both on Social Security. They're also paying 2 credit cards, $400 a month. And this is notes from one of our paralegals that interviewed this man. We went through the enrollment. The daughter's car is in a junkyard, and they're being charged money for having it stay there. We went through him what helps does. We explained to him that his Social Security was protected. He didn't need to worry about the debt for the car that was totaled and the money he owed. He didn't need to worry about the credit card debt either. We explained to him how his income was protected. And one of the most important things we explained to him is that, if you get Social Security and you deposit in your bank account, if you happen to be sued, twice the amount of your federal benefit, like Social Security, is automatically protected from garnishment by your bank, regardless of what monies are in there, where they came from. So if him and his wife and him got $2,000 in Social Security together, $4,000 in their bank account would be protected. And so he called back again. They tell me they're getting lots of scam calls, lots of creditor calls, and we enrolled him. And he doesn't have anything to worry about. He's going to be okay. Okay? So put your questions in the chat feature, and I'll try to answer them. John asked, can an HOA of property I own but will never be able to use, so I quit paying it for around 10 years ago, and they finally sent a letter saying it owe over $2,000. Can they take money from my bank account? No, unless you gave them authority to do that. If they were to sue you and get a judgment, and you're getting Social Security or a pension, your income's protected, like I explained. No, not only that, if that was a debt from over 10 years ago, it's very likely, if not for sure, beyond the statute of limitations, which means they couldn't even literally sue you for the debt. See, the statute of limitations says that, if you incur a debt, uh, then a creditor, and you don't pay it, a creditor has so many years to sue you for the debt. It might be 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years. I don't think there's too many states that have a 10-year statute of limitations. So, no. Now, they could still call and try to collect from you, and it's usually 10 years from when the debt was incurred or when you last made a payment on the debt. But no, John, I wouldn't worry about that. Okay? No, Miss H, I'm still working on that Phil Tyrone thing. Richard said there was a live chat attorney on YouTube pushing debt help. I commented, "Do you inform clients they aren't responsible?" He skipped my comment, so I called him out and I said, "Oh, I missed your comment." That's pretty common, Richard. Yeah, if these debt management companies or debt settlement companies, if they were to tell a senior that their income was protected, they wouldn't enroll with them and they wouldn't get paid. So that's why I accuse them of being fraud. Not all of them, but the vast majority are, because they don't tell seniors the very fact that their income is protected. Seniors deserve to know that. So Kat says she have 2 comments that are missed. You say at the beginning, you said, I sent you a certified mail on third-party authorization form today. Okay, if you're a client in Helps and you send us a letter, you don't need to send it by certified mail. You can text us, fax us, email us, or mail, but you don't need a certified mail. So what's a third-party authorization? So that people know when someone enrolls in Helps, they enroll over the phone. They call us on the phone. We interview you. We ask you some basic questions. It's all confidential. We save the information. Some people call 2, 3, or 4 times before they decide they want to enroll. And then when you enroll in Helps, we click a button, and you're going to get an email from Helps that says, "Welcome to Helps," and we confirms that you're a member of Helps immediately. So that when we hang up the phone, if someone were to call you, you would tell them, "I'm represented by Helps." You give them our phone number, and they're going to leave you alone. And then you're going to send us the creditors you owe money to. And we're going to send them, we need the name, address, and account number. And then we're going to send them what's called a cease and desist letter. It might take them, 2 to 3 or 4 weeks to process that and to stop the phone contact. Now, in the meantime, if you got a call from them, you defer them to us and tell them not to call you anymore. They're going to leave you alone. But we're going to send you in the mail. One of the things we're going to send you in the mail, we call it a third-party authorization. What that says is that once in a while, a debt collector or a creditor that to you owe money, they want proof that we're authorized to represent you to get this so that the contact stops. And that's what's called a third-party authorization form. We like that you send that back to us. It's not critical that we have it, okay? And I would suspect most of the time we will not need it, but it's nice to have it there so that we can send that to a debt collector or a creditor so that they can see that we are authorized to represent you to receive debt collector communication. Now, I don't know why we didn't receive that one or it didn't get processed. Don't know why. But we get lots of them and we're pretty good about it, okay? Oh, Richard says, yeah, yes, we do. And his face said it all. Okay, Beecham asks, thank you. Okay, do you help with medical bills? I have no insurance. Well, absolutely. If you're a senior on Social Security or pension disability, your income is protected from debt collectors, including if you happen to owe medical bills. Okay. Now, if you're you're on Social Security, if you're, you know, getting Medicare, then most of your bills are being paid by Medicare. But if you owe some extra money and you can't afford to pay it, uh, you don't have to. I mean, now if it's your doctor that you use regularly, you may want to send him a little something every month, $10, $20, whatever you think you can afford. But as far as other medical debts you owe, you don't need to pay them if you can't afford to pay them and don't want to pay them. You can't, don't have, they can't collect from you. And we would send a cease and desist letter out to those medical providers. So, Batcham, you don't need to worry about those medical bills. Okay? You're going to be okay. Now, you realize that hospitals, and most of them are nonprofit, they're required to see you even if you don't have the money to pay them. And a lot of hospitals have programs, in fact, where they can waive the medical bills for people that are impoverished. You shouldn't have a problem. So this person contacts us from Colorado. They said they're considering Chapter 7. Can serious illnesses contributed to my financial situation? That's the only information I have. So, like I said, I'm 74. Been an attorney now for 46 years. I graduated from law school and started practice in 1978. And within about 3 to 6 months of my practice, I filed my first bankruptcy. And I filed a lot of bankruptcies as a young attorney until 1986, when I realized that there was a lot of people that needed help with finances and they weren't getting good help. And so I decided to just specialize in bankruptcy. And that's what I did. From 1986 on, formed a very large law firm, which is still in existence, which I'm no longer part of. My brother now runs that law firm with a lot of other attorneys. And they help a lot of people that are struggling with bankruptcy. Well, in helping people, I learned, right off the bat that, seniors' income was protected. They didn't need to pay this debt. And a lot of seniors couldn't afford to file bankruptcy and didn't need to file bankruptcy. And then bankruptcy became real expensive in 2004 when the laws changed. They introduced what's called a means test. There was a mathematical calculation. It was pretty complex, and bankruptcy costs doubled and tripled soon. And then in 2008, the Great Recession happened, and a lot of seniors, lost part of their pensions, and it became difficult. And so as I talked to seniors that were having problems, I realized there had to be a better way, because they'd come to us, they couldn't afford a bankruptcy, but I knew if I sent them home, creditors were going to call them and make their life miserable. But I also knew about the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. Provides if you're represented by an attorney, debt collectors have to leave you alone. So that's how HELPS was started. We represent seniors and disabled persons under the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act as their attorney. We send out what's called a cease and desist letter, and they have to leave them alone. Okay? So, and I tell a lot of seniors, you don't need to file bankruptcy. Can't afford to file bankruptcy, most of them, but a bankruptcy is unnecessary. If your income is protected and there's state laws that protect your assets and there's a way to stop them from bothering you, why do you need to go through bankruptcy? Let alone be able to afford to do it. And then the problem is, sometimes filing bankruptcy is like Brer Rabbit getting to the briar patch. You can get into problems with bankruptcy. I'll give you an example. You're entitled to certain exemptions under state law if you file bankruptcy. So much equity in a home, so much equity in a car, for example. But if you file bankruptcy and you have more equity in your home or more equity in your car than what the state allows, then a bankruptcy trustee could say, hey, I want to sell your car. I need to sell your home. I'll pay you what your exemption is, but with the extra money, I'm going to pay your creditors. And that's not what you want to happen. For that reason, a lot of attorneys that help people that file bankruptcy are going to tell a senior, hey, you don't need to file bankruptcy. But sometimes they make a mistake. So, and if you file the bankruptcy at Chapter 7, you can't really get out of it. You're kind of locked into it, and so it can become a big problem. So for a lot of reasons, bankruptcy is not a good idea for seniors and totally unnecessary. There are some exceptions. Um, so Mary says, I was helped by you several years ago. I had a credit card that the bank would accept for the program. I'm paying $200 a month since then, but can't continue. Mary, except for what program? You mean for helps? The bank doesn't have any say in that. Yeah. If you're our client, you need to get us that creditor, and we're going to send them a cease and desist letter, and they're going to leave you alone. Now, if it's a bank where you bank at, if it's a bank cannot take money out of your bank account. If the only money going in there is Social Security, they can't set that money off to pay a debt you owe your bank. Now, if it's a credit union, it's different. If you sign up with a credit union, whether you realize it or not, you gave them permission to take money out of your account to pay a debt. So if it's a credit union, we tell you to change to a different bank where you don't owe money. But if it's a bank and your only income is Social Security, no reason why you wouldn't be able to keep that account. And you can stop paying them. If they're taking money out automatically, you call them on the phone, tell them to stop it, put a stop payment on it. Now, if you want, you can change to a different bank. But no, Mary, you do not need to keep paying them $200 a month. That money, you can use that money for your food and for your medicine and for your needs. That's what helps is all about. You know, lawmakers protected your income for a reason. So you would have enough money to be able to live. Okay. And you don't need to pay this old debt. Now, if you know, almost half of seniors have incomes within 200% of the poverty line. They struggle, and a lot of these seniors owe debt. That's what helps is designed for, to help these seniors that have modest or lower income or are poor who owe debts, to stop creditors from harassing them. Now, the seniors that have money, they don't have these problems. Okay, they can afford to pay the debt. But if you're not in that category and you can't afford to pay it, you don't need to. And we can protect you from being harassed by debt collectors. Miss H said, a few years back, I went to the emergency room and they said to keep me. I had insurance, someone in billing. I was in my room and billing came in and said, checking to see if you qualify to be here. Yeah. Well, once they accepted you, they can't kick you out. All those, I've heard stories. Um, they were probably meant to say, just checking to see if you would have money to pay us. Okay. So Freedom says, oh, for those of you who are looking for Section 8 housing, that took me 4 years. Do not give up. It took me 4 years of waiting, but the VA gave me this 55 older Section 8 apartment. Don't ever give up. That's right. You know, we have an email that we'll send to someone that gives you a link so you can find out about Section 8 housing anywhere in the country. You don't have to enroll in Section 8 just where you live. You can apply anywhere in the country. Okay? Section 8 is based on your income, not your assets. And there normally is a waiting period, but there's also, we have an email that explains how you can get moved up on the waiting period. It is possible under certain circumstances to move up on the waiting period. Okay? Sometimes I'll tell people to consider signing up for Section 8, even though they don't need it right now. I'll say, you know, get on it now because maybe you're going to need it in the future. Maybe when your husband passes away, your income's going to go down and you're not going to be able to afford where you're at now. You'll be glad that you enrolled now or that you applied now for Section 8. It doesn't mean if you're offered it down the road that you have to accept it. Okay? But when it's offered to you, you very well may be very glad that you applied for it when you did. Okay? Okay. So this person contacts us from Texas and they say, I'm being sued for a credit card that I can no longer afford to pay. Well, okay. When people enroll in helps, you know, we're going to send a cease and desist letter out to the creditors you owe money to or the debt collectors. And we're going to tell them that your income is protected. You can't afford to pay the debt. They're not going to contact you anymore. They can't legally send you demand letters or call you on the phone. Now, in in the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act applies to debt collectors, not original creditors. Original creditors can still contact you. Normally, when we send a cease and desist letter out, we're going to send it to a debt collector and also an original creditor. And it's our experience that original creditors won't call you on the phone. They may still send you a bill, but they're not going to call you. But does it mean that you won't be sued? No, you could possibly be sued. But remember what I've said earlier. Your Social Security, your pension, your disability, your VA benefit, your forms of retirement income are protected by federal and state laws. It can't be taken. And not only that, there's a federal law passed in 2012 that protects twice the amount of your Social Security or federal benefit deposited in your bank account from garnishment. In the event someone were to sue you and get a judgment and they try to garnish your bank account, all of which is pretty unlikely, but it could happen if they did, as long as you kept the balance in there less than twice the amount of your Social Security or other federal benefit like a VA benefit, if you were a retired federal worker, a post office worker, or a railroad employee, those monies are protected. And twice that amount that's deposited in your account is protected automatically from garnishment by your bank without you having to do anything. Now, if you happen to have more than that in there, the excess is still protected, just not automatically. And paperwork could be filed to challenge the garnishment or claim of exemption could be filed to get that money released. So we tell this person from Texas they're not going to need to worry. Okay? And what happens when a helps client is sued, you get us a copy of the lawsuit. We usually just need the first 3 or 4 pages. And we're going to send a letter to the attorney that sued you. And the letter's going to explain that your income is protected. You can't afford to pay the debt. You're not going to do anything. We understand they're going to get a judgment. And then we're going to call you on the phone, explain why you don't need to go to court, why you don't need to worry. We're going to send you an email with links to videos that explains how your income is protected, how your assets are going to be okay. And we're always there for you to call with questions if you're worried or scared, no matter how often. That's the whole purpose of Helps. We're your client, not just one time, literally forever. So if you ever have a question or concern or you're worried, you pick up the phone and you call us, no matter how often. I've said this many times. My pet peeve, one of my pet peeves, and I don't have a lot of them, but one of them is if someone calls me and they say, "Oh, Mr. Olsen, I know you guys are really busy. I didn't want to bother you, but I've been really worried. I've been losing sleep." No, if you're worried or scared, you pick up the phone and you call. I don't care how often. Because when you talk to us, you're going to realize that you don't need to be worried and scared. You're going to sleep easy. Okay, you don't need to be worried. And some people call us, every day for a while. And finally it gets through. They finally realize, I guess I don't need to worry. And you can pick out something else to worry about. Okay. I need to leave my credit. Not necessarily do you need to leave your credit union. Um, uh, let me explain. Only if someone calls, we're going to ask, do you owe money to your bank or credit union? And if they say yes, we're going to ask, do you owe money to your credit union? They'll say yes. And if you're not going to pay your credit union and you owe them debt, then yeah, you would need to leave the credit union because they're going to kick you out if you don't pay them. Okay. And they could try to offset money out of your account if you don't pay them. Now, they wouldn't do that until you were 3 or 4 months behind. By then, you'd be into a different credit union. But if you owe a debt to a credit union, it's a small amount, and you want to keep making that payment, then there's no reason why you couldn't stay in that credit union. Now, you don't need to be worried about a credit union normally offsetting money out of your bank account, if they got rid of garnishment. For a while, we had a problem with credit unions making mistakes. They don't do it anymore. So, no, you shouldn't. You don't necessarily need to leave your credit union. Okay. I think did you understand what I said? I think so. So this person contacts us from Missouri. I'm having financial issues, which means he owes money. I have a lot of debt. Yeah, this is what I said. A lot of debt and not much in the way of resources. Well, you don't need to worry. If your income, Social Security, pension, you're not going to have to pay it, and you can The most, we had a motto or something with helps. One time we said, helps brings peace back to your life. Now, what do I mean by that? When you enroll in helps and you give us the collectors your own money, they're going to stop calling you on the phone. They're going to stop sending you demand letters. It's like a lady, a, a woman many years ago when helps was new. She said, it's like I was out on the ocean after enrolling in helps. And it was perfectly calm and flat and peaceful. Okay. That's what it's like with helps. You don't have to worry about getting these calls. And you always have someone to call. So this person contacts us from Oregon. They say, I'm very excited to see how you may be able to assist me versus filing Chapter 7. Right now, my only income is Social Security since I lost my job in this last June. I will need to get part-time job to help with living expenses, and I am worried about that being garnished. Well, like I explained earlier today, you probably don't need to file bankruptcy. Now, what about a part-time job? Okay, let's talk about that. First off, there is a federal law that means it's effective in all 50 states that protects a minimum of $217.50 net per week in wages. That works out to $435 every 2 weeks, about $950 a month is protected from garnishment net. That's after taxes are taken out. But there's a lot of states that protect more than that. In some states, like Texas and a few other states, don't even allow garnishment of wages. So if you're going to get a part-time job, make a little bit of money, you're going to be okay. We encourage our clients to do that. You don't need to hesitate in doing that. Even if you're going to make more than that, does it mean you're going to be garnished? Highly unlikely. You know, a creditor would have to sue you, get a judgment, and then they're going to have to know where you work. And that's not easy. Where you work is not going to be on your credit report. There's no place you can go to find out where someone works. Now, if you work there for a long time, maybe they might know some way, but I wouldn't worry about it. Okay, if you want to work, you're going to be fine. So that's what we're going to tell this person. Yeah, if you need to get a part-time job. Now, if you're going to become self-employed, you're going to drive Uber, or you're going to deliver groceries, or you have a little company where you're self-employed, you sell something on eBay or whatever. No, it's going to be almost close to impossible for a debt collector to get at that money. So no, if you want to make a little money, no problem. Okay. Remember, helps is designed for the seniors that are lower income, poor, or modest income. If a senior has a lot of income, they're not going to need our help. But no, you can get a little job if you want to. Freedom says it will be a year this November that my car was repoed. It was sold at an auction and I got a letter stating that, but nothing else from anyone. No lawsuit, no nothing. Okay. Uh, Not surprised, Freedom. Not surprised. If you're a helps client, then we would have sent a letter out to the lender after they sent you what is called a deficiency notice. When your car was sold, the balance you owe, they send you a demand letter saying how much you owe. It's called a deficiency notice. When that happens to one of helps clients, you get that to us. We send a letter out to that lender, let him know your income is protected, that you're on Social Security. I think it makes it less likely that lender would decide to sue you. They still could. You don't need to worry about it. So, they may in the future sue you, but you're not going to need to worry about it if they do. If you got sued, you're going to let us know. We're going to notify the attorney. You're not going to need to go to court. You're going to be fine. I can only get a job that pays cash because the government watches everything. Not necessarily. Um, Linda says, I can't see me working after retirement, but I will see what my health is like. That's totally up to you guys. If you decide you want to go to work, you can. Uh, work can keep you healthy. Okay. I'm not, but it's an individual decision. Okay. But someone asked the question, if you go back to work, is it going to be garnished? We don't have that problem with our helps clients. Okay. This is one I put in this morning. It was a note on one of our other a video we do with senior living. The guy says, and where I talk about people's income is protected, and he says, the comment it says, so why is the state I over 30 years ago, live in over 30 years ago, taking $40 a month from my Social Security for a debt I allegedly incurred 30 to 34 years ago? And yes, I'm a senior citizen. So here's my answer. I said, a state can't take money from your Social Security unless it's past due child support. Okay? If you owe a state income taxes, they can't garnish your Social Security. It's even protected in your bank account, just like from a credit card. And then I said, or you might be banking with a credit union that doesn't understand the law that protects your income. Once again, like I said earlier today, that would be very rare. And if that's the case, you let us know. We can communicate with the credit union and give them the correct information. We used to have a problem, but not anymore with credit unions. They're pretty much all educated on the law. And then I said this, or at some point you gave permission for the state to take money from your account to pay some taxes, which you can now revoke or stop. They may be taking it out because you gave them permission years ago and you think they're doing it. No, and you could stop it. You just call your bank and say, I don't want you paying the state anymore. Now, and they'll stop it. Whose money is in the account? It's your money. Who tells your bank what to do with your money? You do. Now, if for some reason you get some idiot bank that says, no, we have to have some, then you can just change to a different bank. You can stop. Okay? Stop that bank account. And then the other thing I said, or maybe you had an SBA or other type of federal loan, which would authorize up to 15% of your Social Security to be offset to pay the debt. Now, that doesn't happen very often, but it does occasionally. That too can be stopped. And then I said, you can always call helps to go over this. And I gave our number, 855-435-7787. I like that, Kathy. She says, I don't worry as much as I did when I joined HELPS almost 2 years ago. But sometimes when I start to thinking about that I haven't received any new calls or letters, I have to just say to myself, stop it. That's right. This is what I tell people. And I've been doing this a long time. I tell people, I say, listen, after you know what we do and we tell you how your income is protected, it's kind of in our nature to start rehashing things, start worrying about it again. So I tell people, if you're at nighttime, you're laying down there and you're thinking, you start worrying about this, and I say, think about when we talked. When we talked with you and we explained how your income was protected and you didn't need to worry. And you understood then that, yeah, I don't have anything to worry about. Think about that conversation. And then you say to yourself, I've already analyzed this. I've already been through this. I don't need to reinvent the wheel, so to speak, with worry. Start worrying about it again when I've already come to the conclusion that I don't need to worry. Okay? So do that. Okay? But once again, if that doesn't work, call us on the phone and we'll explain why you don't need to worry. We don't want you to worry. So Judy's asking a question for a friend. She gets $550 a month from Social Security. She's 65 years old and her home was sold and she reached $100,000. Will she now have to file income taxes and claim as income? No, I don't think so because you've got a federal exemption of $250,000 for capital gains tax, and I doubt there's going to be any state tax on that. No, she should be fine. Now, if she owes debt and she's sued and there's a judgment, she may want to protect that money. We can talk to her about doing that. But no, there shouldn't be any taxes. We don't give legal advice here at Helps. We don't give tax information, uh, tax advice. But what we do is give legal information, and the fact that 250,000 from your sale of your home is protected under federal law, the first two is that's information. That's a fact. Okay. Okay. This person contacts us from Florida, and they say, this is a note from one of our paralegals. We interviewed this person. We went over what we did, and it says a very nice lady that has credit card debt that she can't afford to pay. I think this is one of our attorneys because she always says a very nice lady. I know it is. All our clients are very nice. Once in a while there'll be an exception, but not very often. And I'll tell our staff, I'll say, listen, if we have an exception, we got to understand that we all have different personalities, and some people are under stress, and we got to be patient. So, anyways, this attorney firm helps goes on and says she has Social Security and a private pension income, but has the pension money directly deposited into the credit union account, while her Social Security is directly deposited into her bank checking account. Discussed and emailed her an email on how the bank account is protected from garnishment in the account to which Social Security is deposited. She said she will call her pension and have them start direct deposits into her bank account where Social Security is deposited. And then she won't use her, or will close her credit union account. Yeah, if you don't use it, it'll get closed automatically. Oh, yeah, this has to be this attorney. She says, her words to me before we hung up, she said, and we hear this a lot, said, I have no words to express how grateful I am. Then I said, you are very kind. To which he responded, kindness has nothing to do with it. I am very grateful and thankful for helps. Yeah. So we're happy to help you if you've got these problems. Don't hesitate to call us. If you're having these financial problems, please talk to us. We're going to help you. We're going to give you information. You don't have to enroll in helps, but we're going to give you information so you don't need to worry. Yeah, the time does fly, but we still got 15 minutes, Sunset. Okay. So this person contacts us from Texas. They're age 67. He gets Social Security of $1,400 a month. They owe debt to Wells Fargo and Capital One. And they think that Wells Fargo is trying to sue her. And apparently, the person they talked to in our staff was able to locate and found out that, yeah, she was being sued. See, you can nowadays, I'm an attorney now for a long time, and nowadays you can get on the computer and in probably the majority of times we can look up and find out if a person is being sued in the county where you live. Okay? It'll be available on the county court records. Not all counties have it, but a lot of them do. Probably most of them do. And someday they all will. As we're getting older, we're getting more computer savvy. Okay? And I noticed that with our clients. There's been a dramatic difference since help starts in 2012 to now. Our clients are, as we get older, we're getting more computer savvy. Okay? And there'll be a time when I'm gone, which hopefully is a long time from now, when all the people that are in their 80s and 90s, they're going to be just as computer savvy as the young people because they grew up in the computer age. So she says she was able to find out that she was being sued. And I don't know if and so we told her that, we told this person they don't have to worry. They haven't been they haven't been served with a lawsuit yet, but they probably will be. And when they get that, if they enroll in helps, they're going to get us a copy of the lawsuit. We're going to send a letter to the attorney, tell them to leave them alone. We've already explained to her how her income is protected and she doesn't need to worry. So this person from California calls us. They're age 76 and 73. Social Security is their only income. Oh, yeah. I talked to this person earlier today. They have over $50,000 in credit card debt that they couldn't afford to pay. They bank at Chase and they want to change their bank account. They want to know what bank we recommend. And we said, we told him big banks where he does not owe money are the best choices in his situation. Yeah. He called back with another question. Yes, he can keep making payments on his Chase card. No, we cannot guarantee the card will not be shut down due to damaged credit score. But Chase doesn't do this very often. They probably won't. So in other words, when you call us and you happen to have a credit card that you want to keep, we'll ask you, do you have a credit card with a small balance and nothing is owed that you still want to keep? And if the answer is yes, you can keep that card as long as it's not backed by a bank with whom you have another credit card you're not going to pay. So there's no reason why, if you have a credit card or a loan with one bank, that's backed by a bank, that you wouldn't keep that credit card. Now, it is possible they could lower your credit limit. We don't see that happening very often, but it happens occasionally. But we don't see them trying to cut you off. Okay? So they called back again. We struggle to make payments on this $50,000 in debt. The last time they called was in May. Now they called, yeah, I don't know. This is, looks like Friday maybe. We struggle to make payments with continuing rise in cost of living. There's no way we can pay this off. Our combined income from Social Security is about $4,000. They pay rent and utilities of $2,300. You live in California, by the way. They get a little teeny annuity, which is protected. States, annuities, there's state law will protect your annuity. It varies from state to state. I've never seen a person have an annuity garnished, by the way. I have an annuity that will receive yearly payment, small amount. I would appreciate any help and suggestions you could provide us. Well, they enrolled in helps. And then they called back today, and I had to talk to them about a little issue, and we got that resolved. Okay? I checked my court records and it's all clear, but it wasn't last month. Matrina says, I used to check monthly. I stopped because it made me panic. You don't need to do that. Okay. Remember, if you're sued, they can't do anything to you. Okay. Help's what's going to be there for you. So Dottie asks, hi Eric, what happens if the bank does not send the 1099-C form? Also, what happens if part-time job W-2 doesn't send you the total deductions for your tax return? Well, okay. What's a 1099-C? Well, until you get it, you don't need to worry. What a 1099-C is, if you owe a debt and if it's over $600, then technically a creditor is required to send the IRS a 1099-C saying that you owe this debt, you never paid it, therefore it should be taxes. It should be income that you could be taxed on. But if you're not required to file a tax return, you don't need to worry about a 1099-C. If your only income is Social Security, you're not required to file a 1099-C. Now, what happens if part of your part-time job W-2 send you the total deductions for your tax return file? If your income is really low and you're not, maybe you don't need to file taxes, but I don't know what to tell you about if they don't give your total deductions for your tax return file. The bottom line is, if you owe 1099-C, you shouldn't have to owe any taxes. on that. There is a form that you can file if you're required to file taxes. It's called Form 982. And one of the boxes is the second box you can check is that if you're insolvent, which means if your debt exceeds your assets, then you're not, there's no tax because of a 1099-C. Okay. Yeah, don't check your court records. You got better things to do than that. Okay. The people that, if you're still worrying about this stuff, remember what I said. You don't have. There is no bad case scenario. Okay. If you happen to be sued, you get that to helps. We're going to send a we're going to send a letter to the attorney that sued you, let him know that your income is protected. You're not going to have to go to court. You're going to be okay. So there is no bad case scenario. Oh, yeah. So this person contacts us from Ohio. They get Social Security and a small pension. They they have they're in debt consolidation that we talked about at the beginning, and they've been paying around $1,000 for debt consolidation. I can assure you, if I talked to this person, if I'd asked them, did the debt consolidation company tell you when you enrolled with them that your income was protected? They're going to tell me, no, they didn't tell me that, Mr. Olsen. They didn't tell you that. We went over the protections of what we do. And then they called back and talked to one of our attorneys. And once again, this same attorney says she is a very nice lady. They've been paying so much a month to Trinity Debt Management. Also paying $900 towards her credit cards. Then she had a $1,400 mortgage payment, so she has no money left at all. She was thrilled to hear about helps. She has a credit union account, checking out where both sources of her income are directed. She also has $3,000 in the savings account there, so we discussed, and I emailed her how her bank accounts are protected from garnishment. She would take the money out of her savings and put it in the checking account and keep some of it at home. She has automatic payment for Trinity Debt Management. She's going to call them and stop that. Her husband passed away, so she is the only one in the deed to her home and on the vehicle. A very nice lady that says this will give her peace of mind. Yeah, good. We got a couple more minutes. Take the pocket Bible to the mailbox. Yeah. Well, there's worse. It's the goodest thing as you can take, as I can believe. Okay. So this person contacts us from the great state of Oregon. I'm very excited to see how you may be able to assist me versus filing Chapter 7. Right now, my only income is Social Security. Oh, I think I already did this one. I already talked about this person. So we'll skip down. Credit card debt he can't afford. Tried a debt resolution company, but they haven't got him anywhere. We discussed his protections. No need to worry. We emailed a bunch of emails on what his rights were. So he called us back at the end of June. And we interviewed him and explained why his income was safe. And then he called us again. Once again, he says he's beyond finance. but he can no longer afford the payments. And once again, was he ever told that his income was protected? No. Um, he said he needs his money to get some hearing aids. We read him what we do, answered his questions. He's changing to a different bank because of fraudulent charges. He's not going to give Beyond Finance his new information, so they're not going to be able to take any money from him. And we sent him an email on how to sign up for Section 8. Said, I have no money for food or money for nothing. I need to somehow. Um, anyway, it looks like he's still working with us. He hasn't enrolled yet. It looks like he has enrolled. He's going to be fine. So it looks like we come to nearly the end of an hour. This next one is a little too long to read. I'm glad for all your comments today and your good questions. Please press the like button. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, please do that. The more people that subscribe to our channel and press the like button, the more the word gets spread out about helps and what we do. There's just a lot of people that need this help, and share it with other people, other friends, or people that might need our help. Don't hesitate to call us if you're listening for the first time or you listened for a couple times and you have these problems. I promise you we're going to be nice and you're going to like what we have to tell you. Uh, we don't want you to worry. So thanks for participating today. Today's Monday. We got the rest of the week. We're going to have helps Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of this week. God bless, and everyone have a wonderful day. Bye.